Hi, I'm Katherine Krause. I am a senior psychology major at McKendree University. I'm from Albion, Illinois, but I'm staying with my sister and her husband in Louisville, Kentucky to help out with their beautiful 7-month-old son and their wonderful dog. So this poster is covering my senior thesis, which is the relationship between happiness and humor. But when I say humor, I'm really referring to puns. So let's go ahead and dive into the past research. So puns were found to be more memorable than other forms of humor. And while there isn't much research on puns and happiness, there is quite a bit on general humor, and it is seen as having a positive correlation with happiness. So since there's no past research, my study's kind of new, which was a very exciting opportunity for me. And so I decided to set it up as an experimental design with two main variables, the first one being happiness and the other one being humorous phrases. So the one I was most interested in is puns, and as you can see, I use Tom Swifties, which is a form of pun where something is said and then it's the way that it's said is the pun. And so what an option of that is, it's a rooster, Tom clucked cockily, and so all of that is referring to a rooster, as you can tell. So the one-liners were just jokes that weren't considered to be puns but were still supposed to be humorous, and the control was the thing that was said within the Tom Swiftie, but not that punchline at the end. So since there was no other real studies to base any hypotheses on, I went ahead and just went with research questions. So I was interested in if there would be a difference in happiness before or after reading the phrases, if one condition would be happier after reading the phrases than the others, if participants found the phrases to be funny, and if participants enjoy puns as a form of humor just in general, not necessarily the ones that I had picked. So for my method, I originally was going to go to classrooms and hand out paper surveys, but given the situation we're all in now, I had to convert to online, which worked out really great for me because I got 400 total participants, and their ages ranged from 18 to 85, so there was a great range there. But the average age was about 40 years old, and they were majority white and or female. So for my materials, I use the subjective happiness scale, which is a validated measure for measuring trait happiness, which is how happy a person usually feels in general. Next, I created some of my own items as I wanted to know how happy a person was in that current moment. So I asked, in this moment, how happy are you? And then they would rate that on a scale of 1 to 7. And so I asked that once, and then they would read 10 phrases that were either all puns, all one-liners, or all the control statements, depending on which condition they had been put into. Then after reading those, they once again got that how happy are you in this current moment question, and then there were some other questions about their opinions on how funny the phrases were and how enjoyable puns are as a form of humor in general. So as I mentioned, I had to convert my stuff online, so I decided to use Google Forms. There were 3 versions because there were 3 different conditions, and all of the participants were voluntary and they received no compensation, and I'm very grateful for all of them. So for my results regarding the difference between happiness before and after reading the phrases, I used a pair samples t-test in order to see if there are any differences. Both in the pun and control conditions, I did not find any differences before or after. However, the one-line phrases were seen as being happier after they read the phrases than before. However, I looked and saw that if one condition was happier than the other, and I found with a one-way ANOVA that no, even though one-liners were happier than they were before, they still weren't happier than the other groups necessarily. When looking at the funniness of the phrases, a one-way ANOVA showed that puns and controls were slightly funny, and one-liners were considered moderately funny, which was one measure up on the scale than the slightly funny, and the one-liners were considered as funnier. It was seen as a significant difference than from the other 2 groups. So regarding the enjoyment of puns, both mean and mode showed that participants moderately enjoyed puns, which was a 6 on a scale of 1 to 7, and so participants seemed to enjoy puns, but the ones I gave didn't seem to make them happier. So in my discussion, I had quite a few limitations for my study, as this was one of the first ones of this type. So for it, I only used one kind of pun. Maybe something happened and these puns just didn't ring with anyone, because part of enjoying a pun is getting it. And so if you don't get the wordplay, you're not going to enjoy it and think it's funny. And so that's maybe one issue. And another part of it is my generalizability. While it was a large sample, it was still mostly white people and females, and so it might not be generalizable to everyone. And for future research, I would really like to see other forms of puns being used. There's so many different versions. I think too that would be especially interesting to look at would be visual puns, and it's the long stories that end with a pun at the end that's supposed to be unexpected. I would really like to know more information about those and see how that would have worked with this kind of design. And so that would be where I would go with future research, or if someone else would like to go with that, feel free to. But thank you so much for tuning in and listening about my project. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at catherine.kraus17@mckendree.edu. Thank you.